Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our first community chat of 2021. I'm Addie McClellan, the Community Engagement Manager for United to End Homelessness with Orange County United Way. And today I'm stepping in for our usual host, Bex Hayho, the Executive Director of United to End Homelessness. But we're so excited to start off our 2021 community chat series with such a high note, celebrating the wins that our community has had in regards to new permanent supportive housing developments that have recently come online. So for those who may not be familiar with the term permanent supportive housing, the term refers to housing that is specifically for people who have been homeless for a year or longer and who have a disabling condition. So this housing comes with supportive services that make sure that people stay stably housed and remain housed and try to make sure that we keep people off the streets in our community. When we're talking about permanent supportive housing, in 2020, there were about 164 permanent supportive housing units that were completed across Orange County. So that's such an exciting number, especially in just 1 year, a very difficult year, to see how many units were completed. And to help us talk about some very specific developments that came online recently, we are joined by Grace Stepter, the Deputy Director of Community and Economic Development for the City of Anaheim, George Searcy, the Chief Officer of Operations for Jamboree Housing, and Kyle Paine, the President of Community Development Partners. So I just want to say thank you to all our guest speakers. We're so excited to have you join us today to talk about this subject. And to start us off, it would be great if each of you could explain what your organization or department is and the role that it has in regards to permanent supportive housing. So Kyle, we'll start off with you, and if you could just tell us a bit about your organization.
Yeah, happy to. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So yeah, I'm Kyle Paine, President of Community Development Partners. We're an affordable housing development company based in Newport Beach with offices up in Portland. We focus on owning, operating, developing affordable housing across 4 different states in Oregon, California, Arizona, and Nevada. We have developed mainly affordable housing since we started the company about 10 years ago, and focus on all types of populations, from large families to seniors to veterans and homeless and Native American populations. Specifically to permanent supportive housing, we've got about 400 units that we've either completed or in planning across those 4 states for homeless housing, and about 300 of those are permanent supportive housing. In Orange County, we've developed 135 units, if my math is almost completely accurate there, of permanent supportive housing. So pretty heavily involved in the permanent supportive housing field, and yeah, we're looking forward to doing more in the future, and excited to continue our efforts to try to end homelessness. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kyle. George, I will pass it over to you now. If you could just tell us a bit about what Jamboree Housing does.
Absolutely. Thanks, Addie. Well, Jamboree is a 31-year-old actually this year, nonprofit organization. We were founded 31 years ago in the city of Irvine by a community advocacy member, an activist who saw the need for working families to have a decent and affordable place to live. And from that small start in Irvine back those many years ago, we've expanded across the state of California. We've been developing housing for all sorts of populations that are vulnerable, including permanent supportive housing for those at risk or suffering from homelessness, behavioral health issues. We also develop housing that targets at-risk seniors. In addition to that, we have a very large supportive services a team that works in communities like the one I'm going to be talking about today. And across the state of California, we do have about 10,000 units now over those 30 years that we have developed. And we have about 120 supportive services staff throughout the state. that serve the residents that live in Jamboree communities. And we're thrilled to be a part of this today. So thanks very much to United in Homelessness for hosting us.
Thank you so much, George, for those kind words. And then Grace, I will pass it over to you to talk about your role in the city of Anaheim and what your department does.
Good afternoon, and like my other panel members, thank you for the opportunity to participate today. I am a Deputy Director under the Community and Economic Development Department for the City of Anaheim. As most of you know, Anaheim is the largest city in Orange County, and with that comes a number of societal issues that as a local jurisdiction, we look to be engaged on and make some improvements upon. And our department certainly is knee deep in that foray. Under our department, there are basically 5 core functions. Some have to do with the business side of the world, business attraction and retention, some larger developments that have to do with enticing or bringing in businesses to our community so that we have quality jobs and places for people to make a living so that they could live in our city. Addition to that, we have our workforce department, which helps those who have recently been unemployed to look for jobs that to make a living wage, and just really for those who think that they're ready for a change in their career path, seek training. We also manage a number of federal grants, which range anywhere from funding nonprofits such as YMCA's, Meals on Wheels, to funding capital improvement projects such as lighting projects, infrastructures, and what have you. But for the purposes of today, I think that the 2 main sections that probably would be of some interest is the fact that we also house the housing authority for the city of Anaheim. It is commonly known as the Section 8 voucher program, but that program has 2 components. That issue is vouchers, where folks can actually go into any neighborhood of their choice and use that voucher to rent a place that passes standards that basically are decent, safe, sanitary, and rent reasonable. And then we and then within that program, we also help to develop affordable housing, which means actual hard units that become a part of the community, sometimes into perpetuity, but at a minimum of 55 years. And the 2 gentlemen on this call have been partners in some of those endeavors. George and Jamboree have we've built many different projects together. The city of Anaheim certainly prides itself in that all of our affordable housing development is top-notch, foresighted architecture, inclusive of art. We pay attention to social services, and we want any property that is an affordable property within the city of Anaheim to really be a place that's a sanctuary for those that are coming to exit what usually are some pretty hard situations. So with that, I'll stop.
Wonderful. Thank you, Grace. And this is definitely a very collaborative field of work that all of you are involved in. And so, George, I'll pass it over to you to sort of start us off talking about these different units and different developments that have come online. So I know that Heroes Landing opened this past year in Santa Ana. Could you give us more details on Heroes Landing, like what the focus demographic was and how it helps Orange County address homelessness?
Absolutely. Thank you, Addie. Well, we're thrilled to have completed the construction and the lease up of Heroes Landing, which is a 75-unit apartment complex targeting those who are homeless, who have a history of homelessness, who are also clients of the VA system of healthcare. So all of the folks are both clients of the VA. They're also our residents. And we're just thrilled to have partnered with the city of Santa Ana and the county of Orange to create this beautiful 75-unit facility. I don't know if you're watching, the link to homeless So I continue to struggle with calling it Heroes Landing because for 4 years while we were working on developing it, it was Santa Ana Veterans Village, but it's been renamed Heroes Landing. So you'll forgive me if I switch back and forth between those labels. In any case, in addition to the housing units that have been developed there on First Street in Santa Ana, we've also built a 4,500 square foot community center that's home to a large veteran services collaborative that's composed of the VA Long Beach Healthcare System who are present there. Goodwill Tierney Center for Veteran Services is present. Veterans Legal Institute that provides pro bono legal services to not only our residents, but to the veteran community in that region of Orange County. And we have other partners like Strength and Support and Step Up on Second who are really experienced at working directly with the veteran community. So we really believe that the investment that the city of Santa Ana made, as Grace alluded to, we have partnered, when we partner with cities or counties to leverage these investments that the community is making in developing the housing, there's always a component that we try to add that provides a rich panorama of supportive services that the neighborhood and the community can access as well. And so that's why if you walk up to Heroes Landing on First Street, you'll see that 4,500 square foot community serving space is right along the street edge, so that all of those service providers who are already providing excellent veteran services to the community can also do that right from this housing facility in the community center. I should mention that the reason that Heroes Landing and other projects like it is so essential is even after adding all of these units targeting this very vulnerable and deserving population, we still have in Orange County, as of today, over 200 homeless veterans that remain to be housed somewhere. And so new units coming online is absolutely essential to end veterans' homelessness. And so we appreciate having been able to play a role in providing some part of the solution. We're going to be opening another project in about 15 months on Harbor Boulevard in Santa Ana, another partnership with the city of Santa Ana that will continue to target this population to attempt to reach functional zero in veterans homelessness in Orange County. We're proud to play a role with that and to really be a part of such a terrific collaboration that results in this case, 75 brand new units of housing targeting a very deserving and vulnerable population. So that's it, Addie. Thank you.
Thank you, George. That's really wonderful to hear how how those 75 units came online, especially with partnerships of so many other service provider partners. So Kyle, I'll pass it over to you. So I know the Aqua really recently opened its doors this year. Could you tell us more about the Aqua and what makes it unique that it came online?
Yeah, and it's funny what George just mentioned about the name, and it literally didn't hit me until just now, but the project's actually called Casa Querencia now. It's not Aqua, but again, 4.5 years of working on it, I've been calling it that. So my apologies for not making that correction earlier. But yeah, we just got our C of O on December 31st. So technically we opened last year, but first tenants moved in this year. And yeah, very excited about it and very, I consider it a fairly unique project from a few standpoints. First, it was a former motel, it was a rundown motel, basically had a big vacant lot in the back. And so it had a high crime area. It wasn't well managed, kind of poorly run down. And it was located in this really funky spot right next to the 5 and the 17th in Santa Ana. And it's basically like a flagpole with 2 triangles sitting on top of it. So pretty unique, pretty difficult project to try to design and work around, but we did find a way to do it. And so you can see, I think there's some pictures that might be on Facebook. kind of how it's laid out. And so it ended up being 3 different buildings with a community building in front for services, and then 2 residential buildings, all attached, but basically on the 3 different parcels that have been cut up over the years. So it's a really unique project, kind of fun project to work on from a design perspective of how to get this to work. It also had 2 different zoning zones on it, so we had to do a general plan amendment and a rezone. On top of that, I think the other unique aspect is, so it's targeting chronically homeless, and we worked with both, locally at the city and at the county, and the state and federally for funding. So it's really it's neat example of a partnership of using all the resources involved throughout the state and coming together. So we worked with the city of Santa Ana, who gave us, obviously through the entitlement process, and then also project-based vouchers on all the units. So everyone has rental assistance attached to it. And then partnered with the county as well and got MHSA funding and services. So half the units are for those suffering from severe mental illness. And so the county is providing services as well as capital to get the project completed. We also have additional wraparound services provided by a Mercy House, who's our local nonprofit that we've worked quite a bit with on projects. And so they're providing wraparound services for the other units, as well as providing resident services coordination for the entire project. And then we got funding from HCD at the state level through the Infill Infrastructure Grant Program. And we just recently received an award of AHP funding, which is the Affordable Housing Program funding from the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco. And then we got private debt as well from city community capital, and then 4% tax credit. So really like a good example of leveraging every resource available to house this very vulnerable population, and then provide the wraparound services to hopefully maintain housing. The units have full kitchens. Again, I mentioned they have a fairly large community building in the front, and we also have furnished all the units for the tenants. So we're trying to provide as many of the resources needed to maintain stable housing as possible. And and the project turned out we're very excited about how the project looks. And I think it really adds to the community because it took this vacant, underutilized, really rundown property and parcel that would have been really hard to figure out what to do there, and turned it into something that really benefits the community and really leverages all the resources to help house those who are homeless in the city of Santa Ana. So yeah, very excited about it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kyle. That's really helpful to know. Grace, I'll pass it over to you to talk about, I hope this is the name, El Verano, since we know that it's a pretty special development with regards to who it was designed for. So if you could just give us more details about that, please, that'd be wonderful.
Sure, yes, you got the name right. It is El Verano, which in Spanish means summer. And El Verano is the former site of the Sandman Hotel, which was a nuisance hotel in the city of Anaheim. It was on our Anaheim Police Department's list of top 10 service calls. And a lot of notorious activity going on at the site. Prior to taking ownership of that particular site, we had developed a neighboring property literally right next door called Rockwood Apartments, which George's Jamboree group was the developer, in combination with the developer of the current El Verano, which is Innovative Housing Solutions, formerly known as the Irvine Housing Solutions. It's a nonprofit builder that started in Irvine, predominantly doing senior housing. So Rockwood was the result of data that our team had pulled together and started to really dive into, because part of what our city would like to do is clearly understand who is our homeless population in the city of Anaheim. That seems a little bit of an oxymoron, because I know that people will argue that homelessness doesn't have boundaries. However, as a city, one of our mandates is to address those issues that most immediately impact the quality of life of our residents. And so that is largely how we make decisions about what our need is, and the data that we look to review that then informs our decisions. So in 2016, we decided to fund our own service, very similar to a point in time count. that started to let it inform us who was homeless in our streets. Gender, age, needs, just a lot of demographic information that here to date we had not had. So from that first foray, we ended up targeting a lot of programs to families with who had school-age children in schools that are in Anaheim. And so the Rockwood Apartments, which is right next door to El Verano, is a property that for us it's one of the first of its kind because it targets families, chronically homeless families who have children in our school. And so that gave us a model that really kind of set the stage for a lot of the homeless housing that we're doing here to date. In 2018, we repeated that survey. Trying to find out, have we moved the needle any? Are the numbers going down? Has the demographics shifted? You know, what is the unmet need? Who should we be building housing for or designing programs for? That data revealed that our homeless population was actually aging in place. And as the shelters started to open up throughout Orange County, it was one story after another about seniors who were sitting in wheelchairs all night because, you know, there wasn't a bed, or they just didn't, you know, they just weren't completely comfortable in shelter spaces and what have you. And so we dug deeper into those numbers, and sure enough, that homeless seniors in particular, is one demographics for whom we had not focused on it, and there was a growing need and continues to be a need there. So when the opportunity to work with IHO and develop the Sandman Motel for a affordable housing development site came to be, it was at the same time that a lot of this data was hitting our desks. So we decided that site would be the target population would be seniors, and it would be homeless seniors. So there are 52 units at El Verano. 50% of those units are set aside for chronically homeless seniors. The rest are for low-income seniors. It's a beautifully designed property. It was ready for occupancy in November. And so over the course of the last 3 months, we've been engaged in leasing it up, and it is now fully leased. You would think in the beginning that potentially the units that were set aside for homeless seniors might be the ones that were a little bit more difficult to lease, because certainly we have Section 8 waiting lists of 15 to 20,000 people. But the need has been so great that the units that were set aside for homeless seniors were the first to get leased up. And so, it's always heartwarming. Somehow the tax credit allocation deadlines always seem to line up with the holidays. So it's always heartwarming for us to see when homeless neighbors who have not had a place to call home previously are able to get into units for the holidays. And that happened for a lot of our homeless seniors. By Christmas time, the project was over 60-70% occupied. And like I said, the units for homeless seniors were the ones to go first. The property, working with the developer, will have on-site supportive services specifically designated for seniors, targeted around nutrition, exercise, senior health, all of those things that are important to make sure that people are maintaining a quality of life. Long term, our goal is to have a partnership between the family building and the senior building, whereby the youth in the family building could gain from the experience of the seniors, and the seniors can then be involved with our youth, because we often see anecdotal information about where those two populations really benefit from the integration and just exposure to each other. So that's our long-term goal, is really to have those two properties be involved with each other in social activities and maybe academic activities, or whatever else that it is that we can do. Obviously, right now, because of the pandemic, we're not encouraging anybody getting too close to each other, but that will come with long term. But we certainly are very, very pleased to have been able to offer these 52 units, 25% with homeless set aside. Some may argue that, it's a drop in the bucket, but in our mind, every effort moves the needle that much more ahead.
Grace, that is an excellent segue into sort of the next part of what we wanted to talk to as we wrap up our chat with this. So Grace, I'll hand it over to you. What has been you touched on it before, but how has COVID impacted this lease up process with the developments, and did that impact the typical process for this, or how residents were selected? Anything that specific related to that in regards to Verano?
Well, all of our operations have been significantly impacted. The Section 8 program, historically has been a program that has been very hands-on with clients. So you would come into our office, you would meet a case manager, they would walk you through the paperwork. You could drop off paperwork very easily, to relieve stress of, did you get it, did you not, and what have you. But as a result of COVID, our operations are closed to the public. We continue to, we have no service disruption, but you cannot physically come into our office. So all of our intake eligibility processes, they're still ongoing, but now you have to upload and use a technology to do that. For our seniors, that presents a bit of an issue. And then you add the layer of homelessness. On top of that, do you have all that paperwork? So it's been really, really important to have that social service provider be there and help with the hand holding of that, because it can be stressful, both on our end, but definitely on the client's end, to know that, now everything has to be automated. But, we because of that, we've had to be more flexible, allow more time for people to turn in documents. And obviously the one big lament is that we always love to showcase these properties when they're done. We like to highlight a couple of tenants so people get to see who they are and put a face and name to the person who this property, now the people who are calling it home. And we're not able to do that because it's just not the responsible thing to do right now.
That's very understandable. So George, I'll pass it over to you, since if I remember correctly, I think the groundbreaking for Heroes Landing sort of happened right in the middle of the pandemic. So what has been any obstacles that the COVID pandemic has sort of given Heroes Landing, and if that's impacted the lease up process or how residents were selected? And George, I think your camera might be off, so just wanted to let you know.
Oh, can you see me?
Oh no, I think the camera's off.
No, I can see you, George.
Oh, perfect. Never mind. It's just an issue on my end. Go ahead,
Okay.
George.
Great. Yeah, well, that's a great question, Addie. I mean, having Kyle and Grace on this call is like, these are subject matter experts in this field now, of like trying to continuously operate these ongoing developments while in the middle of a pandemic. Is quite a challenge. But I would say when you're working with homeless vets, I can talk about our Santa Ana Heroes Landing project. We had 4 separate agencies that had to screen the candidates to be housed at the property. And so both coordinating the different agencies during the pandemic when it was impossible to meet together, as well as then, of course, you have to, as Grace pointed out, you really have to be able to provide excellent customer support to the folks that are going to be the residents and manage their move-in, as well as, in our case, we had to outfit every single room with a complete suite of furniture and foodstuffs and cookware and everything you can think of that would make it possible for a person to move right in and to be comfortable there on day one. So we were grateful, much like we work with Grace and her team at the city of Anaheim. Santa Ana has a great housing staff team. So, but they had to screen, Santa Ana Housing Authority had to screen the residents. The Orange County Healthcare Agency had to screen the residents. The VA case management team had to screen the residents, and then the county's coordinated entry system for homeless persons had to screen the residents. So we had a massive logistical challenge of ensuring that even during the shutdown, in order to get people into these units, which was, after all, the whole point of this entire enterprise, was accomplished. And we're very grateful to all those organizations who were very flexible, very creative, and we met our goal, and we're very proud of that. So I would say what everybody who is probably watching this call, as well as my colleagues on this video conference, could say is there are tremendous challenges, but I think we're very fortunate in Orange County to have a group of very committed professionals that made it possible for us to just move right on through it and overcome whatever obstacles there were to, at the end of the day, serve the people that these projects were intended to provide support for.
That's wonderful. Thank you, George. And that's very happy to hear of the progress that's been made. And so I know that we're a bit over time, but Kyle, I wanted to just quickly pass it over to you to see if, to talk about potential challenges with the lease-up process in COVID-19.
Yeah, no problem. And yeah, I mean, I can, what Grace and George said is the same for us in terms of the process, you know, project-based vouchers. So going through that process through the Housing Authority, coordinating the entry system, and then coordinating with the different agencies, in our case, you know, the county and the city to get through. Same thing, you know, there were protocols that had been put in place for property management, and, you know, things had to be tweaked. But overall, I really didn't see a delay because of that in lease up. But, you know, those doing the lease up, I'm sure, had to jump through a lot more hoops than I did. I'll talk to the development side really quick. We had, during construction, you know, some hiccups came up, a shortage of, you know, obviously we had to put protocols in place to make sure everyone was safe. So just adapting to that while we were mid-construction was an interesting process. But we didn't really have too many hiccups. We did have a shortage of some staff on the framing side in terms of the workers coming in, because, you know, people weren't coming in because of COVID, because of the scare. But after about a month, I think everyone kind of got their feet under them and were able to continue the project. And so I wouldn't say we were delayed too much from it, but similar to what George and Grace said, you know, everyone had to adapt. And luckily we have, you know, great people working on great projects. And so people adapted quickly. And I think, you know, the result was we got those units online, similar to the other projects, in a pretty quick manner, and got people off the streets. So overall, I think it was a good process. But yeah, you know, just another wrench in the process that we're all used to kind of dealing with in affordable housing. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you, Kyle, for finishing off on such a great answer. And thank you all to our speakers. Thank you, George, Grace, and Kyle, for joining us on this topic. And thank you to everyone who tuned in today. We're very excited to have started 2021 on such a high note. And with that being said, just a quick reminder that we will be having another community chat on February 25th, looking ahead of what 2021 will hold for new permanent supportive housing progress for Orange County. So if you want to stay up to date on what's going on and these online events, we recommend that you follow us on Facebook. And before everyone heads off, this will just be a gentle reminder that if you are on our Zoom call, you will also have the chance to give us some feedback on how you enjoyed this community chat. So make sure to fill out that poll before you sign off. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you to all our wonderful speakers. Once again, thank you all.